Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of CEO Talk by EquityMatch.com. On today's program, our guest is Dr. Michael Arumemi-ikhide, founder of London's new Pride Members Life Support Club, the Odissean Experience. The Odissean Experience is a novel and completely unique concept created for a variety of well-being and lifestyle needs of the modern, time-poor, high-net-worth individual. Its multidisciplinary and expert-led approach removes the burden of stitching together the different fragments of wellness, joining them all under one roof and ensuring five-star excellence across all spectrum. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you very much, Max. It's a pleasure to be here, and let me extend my greetings to your audience. Thanks very much for having me.
So, Michael, give us a brief insight into your background. What led up to you launching your new well-being and lifestyle brand?
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, my background is actually quite an eclectic, varied one. I mean, I come out of academia. I've also spent a great deal of time I am a corporate executive, and also as a competitive sportsman as well in competitive weightlifting and physique. So, started with PhD in chemical engineering, then I went into, launching a large-scale commercial airline that, we grew over nearly a 15-year period to over $2 billion in terms of enterprise valuation. But through all that time, competitive sports has always been a mainstay of mine for over 30 years. And I suppose like any other corporate executive managing a multinational corporation across multiple jurisdictions with employees in various countries, I also had that challenge of how do I actually balance, get a good work-life balance, optimize my physical health, my mindset, and really look at my performance, as well as manage my social life and family life. And I found that despite the fact that I had been at the coal front, and I am at the coal front of health and wellness for nearly 3 decades, I found the current offering from the wellness environment as quite limited and based on a fundamental wrong premise. And let me explain. Now, right from the Hellenistic era, we've always understood that health and wellness and living an optimized life condition, securing human flourishing, what we'd call eudaimonia, can be achieved and is best achieved by balanced excellence across mind, body, and soul. Now, modern lifestyle, well-being, and lifestyle science further decomposes that into a number of 8 dimensions called the 8 dimensions of wellness. So occupational wellness, financial wellness, intellectual wellness, physical wellness, emotional wellness, social wellness, spiritual wellness, and environmental wellness. Despite the fact that it's been growing at quite phenomenal pace over the few decades, typically looks at these different dimensions as discrete and unrelated entities, or at least weakly or loosely related entities. But this couldn't be further from the truth. They are all intricately linked and interwoven into one. It's like, imagine 6 sides of a die. They're all reflections of the same thing. And in order to achieve what I described as eudaimonia, the condition of human flourishing, what we're talking about, happiness, meaning, and purpose, all of them have to be perfectly synchronized and brought together in a balanced fashion. And so for me, there was clearly a gap in the market for something that was able to address the specific life circumstances of an individual, because we all have different life constraints and goals, the unique characteristics and idiosyncrasies of an individual group, physiologically and psychologically, and was able to support them in a mobile capacity. So for me, that's when I really felt that we needed to bring a offering that closed that space. And that's what led to the birth of the Odissean Experience. So we effectively were an invitation-only private members life support club. We really want to ensure there's a good fit between ourselves and our clients, because we really are about quality of service as opposed to quantity. So very limited memberships. And we bring together sophisticated solutions with our well-being of partners and concierge or lifestyle managers, sophisticated solutions that are able to address the unique characteristics and life constraints, physiological and psychological needs of time-poor, high-net-worth individuals. So, for instance, each individual will bring on board, we take them through a very comprehensive process of diagnostic assessment and health assessment with our Harley Street partners. We then construct fully bespoke solutions based on their own unique characteristics and life challenges. We make sure they're then given support with their own unique fitness provider, their own unique nutritionist, emotional well-being support, as well as a panoply of other specializations, and also help them in terms of their life needs, in terms of life management, concierge service, from the most mundane to the most magnificent. So really, and also we take pride in saying that your health and well-being shouldn't stop at the borders of where you just live, because these are very mobile individuals. These are individuals who have multiple different obligations in multiple territories. And so well-being is something that needs to accompany them. And we do that. We are able to actually accompany them and go to where they are, be mobile to really serve their needs as they need it, when they need it, where they need it. And that's what the Odissean Experience is about.
Thank you so much, Mike. I mean, I'm a big fan of wellness in any way. And I spend all my life in sport, and when I eat, people tell me, Max, how can you eat in this way? But this is how I eat. It's very, very healthy, and I'm completely with you. Performance are 100 times above the average. But one of the key aims of our show is to create a platform where our audience can hear from leaders like you in various industries. So could you briefly give to our audience a 300,000 feet helicopter view on the wellness economy generally, especially in light of the world's recent experience, let me say a very bad one with the COVID-19?
Yes. Excellent question. So the story of wellness is actually quite a very interesting one. And so what I'll do for your audience is just kind of give them a summary and appreciate for them to just give them an insight into the market. So we'll start off with perhaps some basic definitions, so we clarify what we are speaking about when we use the term wellness. We can look at what the different industries and what it covers, because wellness is quite a capacious term and covers many different products and services and expenses. We can look at what the size is in terms of its global economic footprint, and then we look at some of the main areas. And then critically, you cited COVID-19, and I think you've touched on the most salient point, because as wellness had been burgeoning over the decades, COVID-19 really was a watershed moment in the wellness economy. And so really the history of wellness can be bifurcated into, pre-COVID-19 and post-COVID-19. So perhaps we'll start with some basic definitions. So according to the Global Wellness Institute, one of the most foremost non-profit organizations for research in the wellness economy, and the World Health Organization, wellness can be described as activities, services, intentions, and choices that are aimed at bringing an individual into an integrated state of physical, mental, and emotional well-being. So this can be used as a basic summary of what wellness involves. And it involves activities and products and businesses which help individuals embed holistic wellness in their lives. Now, wellness in terms of its economy splits into a variety, up to 11 different industries and sectors. And they include, in no particular order, healthy eating, nutrition and weight loss, personal care and beauty, physical activity, wellness tourism. You have also traditional medicine and complementary medicine, public health prevention and personalized medicine, wellness real estate. You have spas, you have mental well-being, which is a huge and growing sector in itself. You have workplace wellness and thermal springs. So you can see it's quite a diversified economy. Now, in terms of its size, the wellness economy was really growing at roughly 6.6%, according to the Global Wellness Institute, on an average annual growth rate basis of 6.6% from the period to 2017 to 2019. And that was well ahead of the global world economy's GDP growth for that period, which was about roughly 4%. So it was really quite a booming industry. But at the end of 2020, after the contraction due to COVID-19, wellness economy stands at roughly USD 4.4 trillion, which represents about 5% of global GDP. So it's a really huge economy. And even after the contraction of COVID-19, and the wellness economy was severely impacted by COVID-19, it dropped and contracted at the end of 2020 at about, dropped by almost 11%, which is well ahead of the global world economy, according to IMF, which dropped at about roughly 3% over that period. But since then, it's the institutes such as the Global Wealth Institute, et cetera, have all projected the wellness economy to really bounce back to its pre-COVID-19 robust growth, and even to accelerate beyond that over the period 2020 to 2025. In fact, according to GWI, it's projected over that period 2020 to 2025 that the wellness economy will grow at an average annual rate of roughly 10%, which is well ahead of the International Monetary Fund's projection for global GDP growth of roughly 7% across that same period. So the main sectors of wellness are really the healthy eating, nutrition and weight loss, personal care and beauty, and physical activity. This represents 60% of the entire wellness economy. And it's the same for every region you find in wellness. In terms of the largest markets for wellness, you really have the Asia Pacific region, which is about 1.5 trillion USD. And then second to North America, which is about 1.3 trillion. And then Europe is about 1.1 trillion. But country Pacific, US is the largest wellness market at about 1.3 trillion, followed by China at about 700 billion. Japan about 300 billion, and Germany about 250 billion, and United Kingdom is roughly about 150 billion in terms of wellness. Things like workplace wellness, which is one of the subjects we'll be talking about today, represents roughly about 1% of the global wellness economy. It's roughly about 50 billion. And like I said, really booming. It's about 130 billion globally. Now, since COVID-19, there are a couple of key things that have been taken away. Everyone has become much more aware of the between infectious disease and chronic disease. So what we saw during COVID-19 is that the population group that had chronic diseases, like obesity, high blood pressure, etc., diabetes, what we call comorbidities, had poorer outcomes from COVID-19 than population groups that didn't. So this really focused attention on, immune system health. And you saw a real surge in interest in immuno-boosting foods, therapies, etc., and such like, and supplements. So this has really catapulted the importance of wellness in people's minds, in understanding that self-care, a nice luxury, a facial, a yoga class, wellness is being repositioned as more self-preservation and survival. So people are quite rightly, because COVID-19 brought upon a lot of stresses, burnout, frustrations, etc. And bear in mind that even before COVID-19, our mental unwellness and the reports of happiness globally has been steadily on decline. And COVID-19 just exacerbated that. And so people quite rightly ask themselves the question, how can I take care of myself in a way that allows me to cope with challenges without falling apart and be able to take care of myself, my loved ones, my family, my responsibilities? And so there's an understanding that more is now required out of wellness, and understanding that wellness is more omnipresent, more ubiquitous, and much more critical for our sanity and survival than we had probably hitherto appreciated. So that's in a summary where the wellness industry is.
It's very insightful. Thank you so much, Michael.
Well,
we all hear and know that we should exercise, diet, and cultivate positive mental health. But what really are the benefits of wellness? I mean, on an individual and organizational level. And why does it really matter to a corporate CEO, for example?
Excellent question. That's a very fair question. And I think it's very important that the benefits, the well-defined and scientifically and medically proven benefits of health and wellness, which are plentiful, are summarized and articulated clearly so people really understand, both at an individual level and corporate level, why this is not a nice to have, something to be dipped into occasionally, but has been demonstrated through the pandemic and the stresses brought upon and people's realization of the importance of even maintaining their immune system health. It's shifted the understanding of what it is that wellness should incorporate. It's not just about self-care, it's about self-preservation and really survival, and really accessing more about addressing their financial, emotional connection to humans, etc., ensuring that they have better work-life balance. So all of these things have all demonstrated the absolute unique position and the omnipresent nature of wellness in everyone's life as a matter of survival. Now, in terms of the benefits, they're plentiful, and they accrue, as you suggested, on the individual level, the organizational level, the societal, and the planetary level. Let me just begin with, for instance, the individual level, and I'll do my best to just summarize for your audience some of the key main salutary effects of holistic wellness. One, reduction in the risk of premature early death and chronic disease. The scientific literature on this, Max, is really indisputable. It's been shown 150 minutes per week, just 150 minutes per week, 2 hours, 30 minutes a week of moderate intensity exercise is consistently and significantly able to reduce your risk of premature or early death. That is dying earlier than the average age of your population group, and also reduce the risk of chronic disease ranging from colon cancer, breast cancer, type 2 diabetes, coronary heart disease and stroke, metabolic syndrome, adverse lipid profiles, the list goes on, osteoarthritis, hip fracture. And also it's very important to understand that the mitigative effects of health and wellness also apply to all population groups. This reduction in the premature death and also reduction in chronic disease holds true for all population groups covering age, race, and sex. Secondly, wellness has been clearly shown to have really positive effects on improving emotional and mental well-being. So it's been clearly established that wellness practices like mindfulness or exercise really help a person's mood, their sense of well-being, and their overall quality of life. Let me just give you some of the key ways on the emotional and mental health improvement that this does it. One, PTSD and trauma management. It's been clearly shown that holistic wellness has really good salutary effects on PTSD and trauma management. Secondly, depression. Exercise has been clearly demonstrated to significantly increase the brain's sensitivity to the hormones serotonin and norepinephrine, which improve and are able to relieve feelings of mild to moderate depression. Thirdly, pain perception and mood elevation. Holistic wellness practices have been shown to significantly promote the body's production of endorphins, which really helps promote positive feelings and mood states, and simultaneously reduces the body's perception of pain. Improved brain function. Holistic wellness practices have been shown to really significantly improve brain health and prevent cognitive decline. Cognitive decline, this really is about age-related cognitive decline in thinking, recall, memory, judgment. Really includes things like dementia and Alzheimer's. Exercise has also been shown to improve mental concentration, focus, and overall mental acuity. Sleep. Sleep and the importance of sleep in terms of its impact and quality of life is a big area gaining ground in popular culture today for good reason. A recent report released by one of the large-scale research institutes, I believe it was Global Wellness Institute who came out with this, showed that up to 50% of individuals report problems with sleep. That's a staggering high number. But what we see, and knowing how that impacts people's daily life. Now, what's important to realize that it's been clearly shown that wellness practices like exercise have a really good impact on improving sleep, such as dealing with insomnia, and then improve sexual health. For both men and women, it's been clearly shown that exercise has the ability and overall wellness practices to really boost sex drive and sexual performance through both the action of physiological and psychological adaptations. Let me give you an example, Max. It's been clearly established that routine exercise practice has the ability to increase sexual performance and desire in postmenopausal males. For men, exercise has been shown to really be quite a good treatment on alleviating erectile dysfunction. As we all know, positive sexual health is a very important issue for people in terms of how they feel about themselves and also maintaining the relationship with their loved ones and intimate partners. So it's very important. Now, also mood, self-esteem, self-confidence. Practices such as mindfulness and exercise really do require some degree of commitment and discipline. But you see, the payoff of cultivating such habits and also the attainment of any even mild to modest wellness goals has an outside impact in boosting self-confidence, mental and emotional resilience, and overall sense of well-being. Now, so those are just under the emotional and mental well-being improvement bucket. Let's move to another area: weight management, beautification, and aging well. Now, it's really interesting. I've always been very, very curious and quite interested in this to know that a lot of the literature, the scientific literature, is really profuse with this information that it's been shown that the presence of good health behaviors such as proper nutrition, hydration, proper sleep, good exercise, lack of stress are all coincident with healthy metabolism, fat loss maximization, the maintenance of a healthy body mass, promotion of musculoskeletal health. In addition, it's important to realize that things like exercise, combined with other wellness protocols like hydration, proper sleep, provide antioxidant protection, promote blood flow, add sparkle and radiance to a person's complexion, delay the signs of aging, and promote youthfulness. I think also, very importantly, wellness practices have been shown to have a really positive impact in immune system health, boosting immune system health and promoting and boosting energy levels. Now, like we mentioned before, there's one thing the coronavirus has done is establish a clear link between infectious disease and chronic disease. Now, what is going through the scientific literature is that good wellness practices that help inculcate positive health behaviors like positive nutrition, doing exercise, getting rest, are significantly able to improve immune system health and combat or suppress the onset of chronic disease. From an energy perspective, we often hear this, but it's probably helpful to let your audience know by what pathway or action the wellness practices like exercise do actually help us boost our energy levels and help us focus more. Now, it's important to remember that these wellness practices all improve muscular and cardiovascular system health, wellness practices like exercise. Cardiovascular system health refers to the health of your heart and lungs. But why is this important? Why does improved heart and lung function why is this important? Well, this translates into increased strength, endurance, and reduced feelings of fatigue. Now, exercise has been clearly shown to be able to boost energy levels in people who report suffering from chronic fatigue syndrome and other ailments. So these are the ways, just on an individual level, you can see the real critical importance of holistic wellness practices like exercise, proper nutrition, etc., and proper mental health and mindset management. If we now look at the organizational side of things, which is extremely important, these benefits quite naturally scale into an organization, which is obviously constituted of individuals. Now, employers have known for a very, very long time that making sure that employee welfare is properly addressed, making sure that their needs, both inside the work environment and outside work environment, so they can have a good work-life balance, making sure that they're given opportunity to grow, etc., and address them as whole people, all connects, and this all connects to ensuring that they're more engaged, which has an impact on organizational performance and shareholder profit maximization. Now, to be fair, workplace wellness doesn't constitute a very great deal of the global wellness economy. It currently really sits at about roughly 1% of the global wellness economy as of 2020, reported by the Global Wellness Institute. It's roughly about 50 billion USD globally. The United States is the largest workplace wellness market at about 15 billion. And you have somewhere like UK significantly less than that, roughly about 3 billion US dollars for workplace wellness. And the other problem we have with that, and the reason why it doesn't have as large a share of the wellness economy pie, is the issue of access to effective workplace wellness. And one of the symptoms that we're seeing with the proliferation and continuous expansion of the gig economy, individuals who are not permanent employees, is that as the permanent employee space has continued to dwindle over time, these gig economy workers, non-permanent employees, non-permanent staff, these kind of jobs don't typically come with workplace wellness benefits. And so, of course, the expansion of the gig economy seems to be coincident with a constraint on access to workplace wellness. So globally, in terms of the number of employees who have access to workplace wellness, is running about 10% of the workforce. It's much larger in US, which is the largest market, and roughly 50% of workforce have access in the US, and in Europe is about 30%, but globally it's about 10.2%. Nevertheless, whilst there's a lot more that can be done to expand it across the globe and continue to expand it in those regions like US and Europe and the UK, it's clear to see that all the investigations show conclusively that organizations who have effective workplace programs tend to be those organizations, or it tends to be a common feature or a salient feature of high-performing and well-managed organizations. This was actually reported by a group called the Forrester Group. And one of the academic papers, I'll give you this insight, Max, I always found it very interesting. I find this quite interesting. One of the academic papers they pointed to actually did a study. They looked at the stock value of a portfolio of companies that put in place or had in place effective workplace wellness programs. And what they did is they looked over a 6-year simulated period, and they reported that the stock values of this basket of companies with effective workplace wellness program appreciated by up to 235% compared to the S&P 500 index, which appreciated by roughly 159% over the comparable period. Now, data like this at least strongly signals the financial imperative and at least demonstrates that workplace wellness, if anything, at least a significant salient lever in affecting organizational performance and shareholder profit maximization, which is the preserve of a profit-making organization, and therefore their profit, a CEO or leadership team who are put in charge and accountable for that profit-making organization. So, but let's decompose this a little, because it's one thing to say that, yes, effective workplace programs drive organizational performance, drive shareholder profit maximization. But by what pathways does it do this? And so let's decompose it for your audience a little. And before I go further, perhaps it's here to just punctuate this with a little bit of a clarification. It's important to be clear about what we mean about effective workplace wellness programs. Now, workplace wellness programs, typically they address behaviors I mentioned before: eating, training, lack of sleep, etc., reduction in smoking, and they affect risk factors. They address risk factors: obesity, addiction, chronic illness, depression, and stress. Now, they're typically given as health assessments or diagnostic testing or subsidized gym memberships or the occasional lecture on nutrition or trade fair, etc. We don't mean this when we describe effective workplace programs. We mean effective workplace programs that are able to address employees in a comprehensive fashion and address root causes of stress and burnout, as opposed to just treating symptoms. What is clear, though, from the current data is that cookie cutter solutions that really don't have the ability to shift the needle, as well as in terms of improving performance in an organization. So really, employers have known this even before COVID-19, but COVID-19 has spurred this on for employers to really try and come up with creative and flexible solutions that are able to address employees as whole peoples, both the work-related causes of stress as well as the non-work-related causes. So really creating solutions that go across dimensions of well-being, whether it's the financial health, the emotion, what's going on at home, the ability to drive connections, to grow, to find meaning. So this is what we mean by effective workplace wellness, and it's important to clarify that. Now, in terms of decomposing the pathways by which we secure this improvement in financial performance, the first one is healthcare costs, reduction in healthcare costs. Now, healthcare costs, as you know, Max, is one of the largest and most difficult expenses to control, especially in markets like US, where employers are predominantly responsible for bearing the healthcare costs, and therefore have a clear incentive to reduce healthcare costs and boost productivity. Now, the literature is awash with the information, and it's conclusive on this point that effective workplace programs that are able to cultivate positive health behaviors. By this, I mean proper nutrition, sleep, advocacy for exercise, advocacy for work-life balance. These sorts of effective workplace programs are shown to significantly bend downwards the healthcare trend line over time. Now, let's contextualize this. Harvard University did a recent survey. They did a recent report. It came out, I believe, 2021. I may be recalling that in error. Nevertheless, the point being, they looked at a basket of companies, and they looked at the relationship between effective workplace programs and healthcare costs. And they demonstrated, and one of the key criteria for this sample group was that companies had to have effective workplace wellness programs in place for a minimum of 3 years. And the return on investment, the ROI ratio, came back at 3.27 or 327%. To translate, that means for every dollar spent on effective workplace program, for every dollar invested in effective workplace program, the company was able to save $3.27 in reduced healthcare costs. Okay. Secondly, effective workplace programs are able to drive organization-wide productivity. Now, how does it do this? It does this by two particular mechanisms. One, reduction in presenteeism. Presenteeism really just means individuals present as work and not working. You and I have run large-scale organizations, and we know this is a real thing.
It does.
So we know, we probably don't need to say further, but we both know that the fact that just because people are at the office sat at the desk doesn't mean they're doing productive work. And this is a huge leakage for organizations. And this might surprise you, Max. It certainly surprised me when I learned this, that productivity losses due to presenteeism actually constitutes up to 2 to 3 times more than health cost expense. Astonishing. And what's amazing is that, and this is even more amazing, one of the primary drivers or one of the primary correlates and causes of presenteeism is poor health behaviors. So again, a lot of the literature have been really robust in the point and report that where you have in employee groups that have high rate of presenteeism, so high rates of being at work without working, are coincident with employee groups that have poor health behaviors. So this tends to be the employee population groups that have difficulty with smoking, don't take enough exercise, don't eat well, don't get enough sleep, don't get a proper life balance. And as opposed to the converse, employee population groups that have good salutary health behaviors, do eat well, get time to exercise, have a better work-life balance, are addressing the sleep concerns, have lower rates of presenteeism. Now, moving on from there, what we see is that population groups with high rates of presenteeism, that is with poor health behaviors, is synonymous and correlates with the incidence of high risk of chronic disease. So obesity, heart attack, asthma, type 2 diabetes, chronic pain, and all of this presents channels for leakage to an organization. So what the literature shows is that organizations that are able to put in place effective workplace programs that have a positive impact on healthy behaviors are able to drive a reduction in presenteeism and close off that avenue of productivity losses. The second mechanism is absenteeism, which is, it's obvious to guess what that means. It's just time out of work. Now, what we see is that in employee groups that have good health behaviors, the rate of absenteeism is much lower and therefore is less of a channel for productivity losses to organizations. Here's a very interesting piece of literature. Harvard University again did a report, and they looked at the relationship between workplace wellness and absenteeism. And what they showed was the ROI, the return on investment ratio on workplace wellness with respect to absenteeism was roughly 2.73 or 237%. In other words, for every dollar invested in workplace wellness, there was a $2.73 saving from absenteeism. So this is at least, I think this is hard to ignore. Let me talk about another way that workplace wellness helps. It's actually a really important competitive advantage in terms of recruitment and retention of staff. All the body of work around the management literature as it applies to well-being shows clearly that companies that have effective workplace program in place are more robustly set to better themselves in terms of recruitment, retention, and avoid the personnel attritional costs associated with continued recruitment, hiring, and training. Now, it's important to remember that in this current environment, where, like I said, we're coming out, especially when coming out of the COVID-19, where I think we're all aware of the Great Resignation. The COVID-19 was really a period where people really reflected on what their priorities are, gave people time to pause and reflect as what's important. Are they spending their livelihood in worthwhile endeavor? And it's funny because, again, a report by a Global Wellness Institute also underscored this point that I think it was at the end of 2020, nearly 45% of workers reported considering changing their jobs in the next season. So employees are looking for more of work, not just financial benefits. Of course, this is all important, not just the financial package, but employers that can afford them better work-life balance, a healthy community that can support them, access to connections, the ability to learn, to grow, to better, etc. They want more out of their workplace wellness. So for leaders, it's clear to me that the companies and organizationals' cultural bona fides, their cultural their brand positioning, their values when it comes to their posture with regards to well-being is going to be a salient factor in decision-making of where employees want to go, who they want to actually work with, and who they want to stay with. Now, so it's a real competitive issue. Now, last but not least, the bullseye of the issue. Effective workplace wellness drives organizational income and earnings. Also, it's important to remember that these effective workplace wellness programs don't just make employees logically better, they also make them psychologically better. They're happier and more engaged. Now, happier and more engaged employees, that is, employees who are prepared and are willing and excited to go above and beyond, don't just reduce absenteeism and presenteeism, but they really have really strong beneficial downstream effects on customer satisfaction and experience, and consequently organizational performance. How so? Again, a lot of the literature clearly shows that up to 35%, Max, up to 35% of customer satisfaction and experience derives from employee engagement. Also, moving further from that, the literature clearly establishes that there's a tight correlation between customer satisfaction and experience and organizational turnover. In fact, it's been demonstrated that, Max, just a 1% increase in customer satisfaction and experience is enough to deliver a disproportionately high, substantial increase in company revenue and returns. So, what is the takeaway from all this? What is the inescapable conclusion to be drawn from all this? It means that workplace wellness, effective workplace wellness, is a driver for shareholder profit maximization through the action of employee engagement and customer experience, customer satisfaction and experience. Therefore, as a leader and an organization, even if you're parochially or provincially focused on simply driving organizational performance and shareholder profit maximization, at the very least, ensuring effective workplace wellness programs are in place is an absolute key lever you have in place to pull to drive these commercial value and shore up the stock price and valuation and performance of your firm. So I think, taking together, these all make really salient points and make workplace wellness and wellness for an individual, at the start, essential, critical component for organizations. Because at the end of the day, Max, let's be honest, and this has to be the truth. The most important asset for an organization are its people.
Of course they are.
So, so if we understand that, surely, we have to understand that ensuring the person is wholly integrated. If employees are worried about their home life, their finances, their relationships, they're distracted, they're not able to engage, perform, and produce for an organization. So it is a matter of simply good policy to ensure that these things are addressed at source. And we as a society, it's important to note that the complaints of mental health, the complaints of burnout has been steadily on the rise for decades, Max, from complaints in workers in China, in Japan, in Europe. It's been steadily on the increase. In fact, I'll give you a very disturbing piece of data. I think it was 2020, where a survey was done on employees and reported employees self-report of their daily stress level. Up to 50% of employees reported having increased daily stress. I think it was at the end of 2020. That's a crisis. And so this has to be addressed at source in a really whole person, holistic fashion that ensures that we're addressing the needs of our staff, really from not just what the work causes, the rated sources of stress, but non-work related causes of stress. And then most importantly, from a CEO's perspective, Max, from a leader's perspective, this is a lever for organizational performance and profit increase and valuation boosting. So it makes perfect sense.
Let's take from the perspective of organizational leadership, right? Because in any way, we are talking about entrepreneurs, we are talking about founders. What would you say is the leader's role in securing the stated benefits of workplace wellness?
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. That's a great, great question. Let me first start by saying, I think it was, I may be quoting this wrong, and if I'm in error, please forgive me. I believe it was Steve Covey that made the statement that whilst management may be efficiency in climbing the ladder of success, leadership is about ensuring that ladder against the right wall. So leadership is about really setting direction of travel. It's about setting our intent, our North Star, creating purpose and directionality. So a leader's role is central. Now, let's say this. It's important to recognize that, think about something like mental health. It's become such a prevalent issue. And one of the things that COVID-19 really did was show us this disconnect between the chasm between the mental health needs of society, including workforce, and the mental health resources available to support. And it showed this chasm. So as you've clearly seen coming out of coronavirus, there's now a very big shift into focusing on things like mental health, as we all understand that this is a means of accessing improved health and well-being. It's a workplace protection tool. And for governments, it's really a public and community strategy. So there's a lot that has been, put in place. But for a leader's role in this, it's important to recognize that whilst a lot, they had steadily been shifting before COVID-19 to offer more expansive solutions. So they had been making this shift before COVID-19 in terms of making sure it's not just cookie cutter solutions being offered, but more broader solutions across the different dimensions of wellness for employees. COVID-19 has certainly spurred that on. But I think what is important here for us and leaders to recognize that championing effective workplace wellness is not just the reserve of the HR department. It is not just like I said at the start, it's not just virtue signaling. It shouldn't be virtual signaling. It's not just a tick box exercise. And, let's recognize that there are a lot of great leaders and organizations there, who are doing a great job for their employees and leading the way in workplace wellness, but certainly a lot more has to be done. But rather than just the HR department, this is about really a change in culture, in hierarchy, and this is about leadership setting the way. So it's also the responsibility of senior management, starting with the leader, starting with the chief executive, to listen, to understand, to take on board the responsibility to address those comprehensive needs, using creativity and flexibility to address those needs of the employee workforce. Let's make this concrete. Max, today we have a workforce that spans 4 generations. Yeah. So we have about 4 generations in our workforce. We have probably more senior citizens who are delaying retirement. We have, employees with children, who are parents. We have young employees who are just coming into the workspace. All these different groups require different sorts of solutions. Let's say the young, fresh graduate coming through may need some financial support and assistance on student loans, perhaps. The more senior citizen may require, retirement saving options as perhaps. So these things have to be tailored accordingly. So companies and leaders, beginning with the CEOs, have to take a creative approach in trying to address comprehensive solutions for the employee groups. But Max, here's the thing. It goes beyond simply offering a listening ear and taking action. As critical as that is, it's about the real issue for leaders is about setting that cultural direction. An organization is a reflection of its leadership. And so if the organization really wants to honor and live out its values, it says it really believes in workplace wellness as a reality, then it has to be the champion for living out those values, making sure that the culture is synonymous with the stated beliefs is the leader themselves. So I look at this issue, it's an issue of self-leadership first, as being the cornerstone for organizational leadership. So the leader has to model this. It can't simply be something that they give lip service to. They have to be the champion in terms of they themselves pursuing complete holistic wellness, showing and leading the way for their organization and being a champion for that as a cultural direction and a cultural reality and a normative value for their organizations. As the leader themselves, it starts with self-leadership. As the leader themselves walks down this path, make sure that they are the best they can be mentally, emotionally, socially, and they set that, they're the thermostat. They set that standard. They are then best placed to ensure that they recruit individuals and their direct reports are also of the same mind and they also practice the same. And then they're in a better position to really ensure that that precipitates through their organization all the way through and makes an impact into society. And that's how change is made. It's made from the individual. It's made in the organization as it cascades through and it's precipitated outward and radiates out from the leader who sets the cultural direction and models should be a model of what they want to see and what they believe in the organization. And it moves out into society. And that's how we move out into making change on a larger scale level, which is much needed. Like I cited recently, even before COVID-19, the really parlous state and worrying reports of global decline in happiness, increased reporting stress and burnout and frustration and isolation, increased rise in chronic disease and ailments. So clearly, I think a lot needs to be done to arrest the current state of malaise, despite our comparative material wealth. This is all happening despite the fact that we're comparatively a much more wealthier society than we've ever been in any period of time in history. Global GDP is roughly 100 trillion, roughly, something like that. I might be wrong, roughly something like that. And yet our self-report of well-being, despite the fact we recognize its importance, our own self-report suggests that we're not doing well. So
I can't agree more. What next for the Odissean Experience? Where people can find a little more about the Odissean Experience and yourself?
Oh, thank you so much, Max. Yes, really for us, we are really excited about our future, and we're really excited. I must say, we've just launched, so we've really just come into the market and we're out there working with our wonderful clients, and I've been surprised by the response, but in a way I'm not, because I, like yourself, I come from this corporate environment. We all know what it is to have the stresses and challenges of our various jobs. And let's also say it's not just about the corporate environment. It's you could be an athlete, you could be a stay-at-home parent, you could be a student facing exams. Whatever stress is to you, it's all relative, isn't it? Really, whatever stress is to you, it's how do we help you improve your vantage point of life, and wherever you are on that escalator of well-being or betterness, to take you better, to help you really to make transformative, durable change in our clients' lives. So we're really out there working with that now. And what we're also doing is expanding our universe of what we call our universe of well-being and lifestyle excellence. So when we work with clients, we put them in what's called a wellness client cell. They get supported by their own specialist curators across multiple dimensions. We work with a whole cadre of top-class wellness providers and Harley Street technicians and clinicians and many others. And we also provide them a lifestyle client cell where their life management and concierge needs are all taken care of. But what we're also doing, because like I mentioned earlier, we're very much on the preventive side of wellness. We try to get to you before it gets to crisis. But what we're now doing is we're expanding. I'm very fortunate and humbled to be in early stage conversations with some very, well-known, leaders in the global wellness space, and bringing them into our fold, which will allow us also offer, crisis support. So we'll be able to offer our members pre-crisis support, preventative wellness, but also able to deal with more complex cases that may involve, mental health, addiction, substance abuse issues that require proper clinical intervention, etc., and pharmacology. The Odissean Experience in and of itself, what we do, we're not that. We really look at the preventative wellness side, but we're now being able to expand that to bring in really medical professionals to deal with crisis when you require time out. We're really about supporting you in the field, Max, right in your field. So, if you're traveling, you're busy in wherever, Brazil, in America, your wellness shouldn't stop once you leave your home country. It goes with you on your flight. It goes with you when you're on the quick business trip to Tokyo and you're turning around. It's required when you're off to New York, getting back to Saint-Tropez the next day. So you need and I felt this was something I felt I could see I required, and I could see my colleagues in that space needed. You need something that's able to understand you and, really follow you, be mobile, and assist you as a life partner. Hence, we use the phrase that private members life support club to really, support you in your endeavors. So we're expanding in that. Our ability to bring in crisis support and then post-crisis will be phenomenal. This is just the first phase of what the Odissean brand is about for our high net worth individuals, but we also have quite ambitious plans going forward for phase 2, as well as we'll be expanding into other territories. Right now, we're looking at really supporting individuals in the London-centric, but we're also looking at supporting clients internationally as well, and growing that. So that's a lot to play for going forward. And in terms of where your audience may find us, very simple. Just please kindly go to our website. It's www.theodisseanexperience.com. That's the Odissean Experience, THEODISSEAN experience.com, and you can find us there.
Michael, I can't thank you more to be with us. It's been an absolutely pleasure to talk to you. I really thank you for bringing wellness to the next stage. I have to say there is a need, and I'm completely sure our audience will enjoy so much this talk and all the great advices and insight you're giving to us today. Again, thank you so much for being with us. This is our first CEO talk, and we couldn't start in a better way. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you so much, Max. I must say, I'm deeply honored. You and I have a fast, strong friendship here, and we're kindred spirits. And to be and you're doing great work with Equity Match members.
Thank you.
I must compliment you on the fabulous work Equity Match is doing in terms of providing really much needed access to entrepreneurial capital for lots of individuals across the world who have great ideas and need support and need guidance towards turning those ideas into reality. And I love what you're doing in terms of democratizing entrepreneurship in different segments. And I think that's just fabulous and wonderful. So I take all credit to you, and to have been invited here to launch your series. We're deeply honored and humbled for the time. And I want to thank your audience for listening to us and what we have to say. And if it's been of any help or benefit, then our job is done. Thank you.